Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 355. I'm your host, Michael. Joining us this evening, regular cast of character, Gail from NY Fights and Communities Digital News. Back after a lengthy hiatus, Jacob Daniel from Four Boxing News and the Inscriber. He'll be on shortly. And the lady right below my image. If you listen to the Ladies Love Boxing show, the last edition in 2021, you heard her on the show breaking down Anthony Joshua's win, as well as talking about Fury and Wilder, the trilogy. She's back, ladies and gentlemen, in the ring with Christine. What's going on, ladies and gents?
Hello.
Hey, glad to have some fresh insights on this show this week.
Absolutely. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, podcast, as well as blog/site. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. To find out all the information about the show, the blog page site is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. If you want to email us, you can do so. P4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you'll find the links to where to find us all over the socials: Twitter, Facebook/Meta, IG, Tumblr, Twitter. Also, links to where you can find the podcast on all podcast platforms, be it Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Anchor, anywhere and everywhere else in between. If you want to donate, there is a Cash Me and PayPal donation link within the site. It's usually I think it's in my description. Even though I'm not a coach for Beachbody for the time being, I still suggest check out Beachbody on Demand. If you look to get your body right, for the summer or for 2022, please check out Beachbody on Demand. Take advantage of the 2-week trial. That is, for 2 weeks, you get free access to all the programs on BOD, be it the classic P90X series, Bar Blend, Morning Meltdown, which the ladies like, the Insanity series, or the boxing-based programs, 10 rounds, that is a 8-week boxing-based program, 3 days a week of resistance / weightlifting. 3 days a week of cardio, boxing-based cardio, 2 days a week of weightlifting / resistance work. And also check out the new 645 program, which dropped at the end of 2021. 6 weeks of work if you really want to challenge yourself. Let's get things going by recapping what went down last week. I want to focus a lot of attention towards this upcoming fight we're talking about, get ready to talk about. I'm going to start off with you, Gail, ladies first as always, because you was in the building for this fight. And that is the highly anticipated showdown between Roman Gonzalez and Julio Cesar Martinez. As most folks know, Martinez filled in, was a replacement for Juan Francisco Estrada, who had to withdraw due to complications from COVID. In the lead up, a lot of excitement towards this bout, Gail, but in the end, the attention was all on Chocolatito for good reason. After studying his prey, what I like to call him, because that's what he was in the end, prey, he figured out the puzzle and then took over. From second round on, he dominated. Didn't just win, Gail, he beat Martinez up. I felt personally, as the fight went on, late 10th, 11th round, I felt it should have been stopped. Martinez shows toughness, but he showed through, but he fought till the end. The reason I named this particular episode, for those who checking out us out live or will check us out later, classes in session, is because the elder Chocolatito took the younger man Martinez to school. I made the mistake, I'll admit it now, that when Roman lost twice to Rungvisai in 2017, I thought he was close to the end. He's fooled me and a lot of other folks. I'm not going to say he is in his prime, but he's fighting at it's like his career has been rejuvenated. Just a masterful performance.
Yeah, you weren't alone. I think most boxing observers looked at that devastating knockout he suffered to Sor Rungvisai and thought that he's just simply never going to be the same. He also dealt with a lot of issues in his personal life. The death of his one and only longtime trainer, who was truly a father figure to him, devastated him. Um, but he found a new trainer. He found a new purpose. He got himself right. In a way, the pandemic and the layoff, I think, helped him quite a bit, let him settle in, let him focus. When he came back against Caliafai, we kind of thought maybe he'd be a bit of an elevated gatekeeper, sort of the last appearance, swan song from the, legendary great Beatty. Oh, boy, did he fool us. He has found a completely new gear, new chapter. Now, it's true that at age 34, he's a little bit slower. He never had the kind of power at 115 he did in the lower weight divisions, although he still can snap a man's head around, as we saw frequently on Saturday. But the craft is just next level stuff. And for a lot of us, you do not have to see a knockout to get excited about the kind of performance we saw Saturday. Truly, it was like a mongoose playing. I would say a mongoose playing with a cobra, but it was way overmatched. It was more like a cat toying with a mouse. I mean, Roman just had his way with Martinez. And boy, Michael, when you talk about him filling in, well, he did fill in. He missed weight on Friday by 1.5 pounds. Actually, he initially missed weight by 2 pounds. He was 1.5 pounds over. They decided to carry on with a stiff fine and a rehydration limit. He did make that, but we don't really know what Martinez had to do to make that weight limit the next morning. Did he forego a meal? Was he in the sauna? I mean, we just don't know. And it was clear after a couple of rounds, he had no answers for what was coming at him. Crisp, short shots. Ramon Gonzalez is the textbook definition of being economical with your physical output and your punches. And that is why at age 34, he could still throw over 1,000 punches. And he landed 200 more punches than the man 7 years younger than him. I thought he was going to take him out in the 12th round. Martinez, good for him. Apparently he and his team wanted to end on his feet, and he did. I hope he got looked at after the fight for taking that much punishment for 12 rounds. Now, I did see him pull up at the Fighter Hotel about an hour and a half later. We were greatly delayed, actually waiting for Chocolatito to do a post-fight news conference and sit around with a bunch of us. So when I finally got back over there, it was quite a bit after the fight card had ended, and he had pulled up sitting in the back seat of a car, just a civilian car, not an ambulance or transport or anything. It looked like a member of his team was driving, and he was not in a hurry to get out of the back seat. So I think he's going to need a nice long break. In the meantime, Ramon's asked what he wanted to do, and we'll have to talk about that because his plans sound rather interesting and rather open-ended. But truly, it was just magnificent watching him perform. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He absolutely sealed it with this performance, if it was ever in doubt. And we may be lucky enough to get to see him for 2, 3, 4 fights. He doesn't know when he's going to retire. But folks, do not miss a minute of whatever he's got left to offer.
He has all the options right now, Gail. Read a comment here in the chat. He says, West Coast Boxing says my boy Bam would take care of business. We're going to talk about that because based on what we've seen from Roman in the last 2 fights, Bam is a talent. No doubt about that. But St. Quadras who's weak in the gut and who fades. Roman is he's a different beast. We'll talk about that in a bit. I'll go to you, Christine. When we discussed this fight last week, we previewed it. I said if Roman was anywhere close to what we've seen against Estrada, he would win. Gail mentioned the issues of weights with Martinez. It's not his first time he's had issues getting down to weight. He had it his last few defenses when he was flyweight champ. He still is flyweight champ. my argument is slightly that I don't think it mattered because the difference in this fight was the technical ability of
Mm-hmm.
Roman, vastly superior to Martinez, right? Uh, you're a coach. You train and teach amateurs as well as pros. I penned an article for Three Kings Boxing. Shout out to the fellas over there. Check out threekingsboxing.com, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information, right? I posed the question: has Roman surpassed Alexis Arguello as the greatest from Nicaragua? The
Mm.
thing that was most impressive in this performance against Martinez for me, he stays calm in the storm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chaos all around him. That relaxation helps him see everything. That leads to my second point: his eyes. He has great eyes. It's easy to see shots when you're at mid range or outside, and someone comes at you. Even if you're dealing with a fast guy and you get hit, that's just you have a slow reaction time. That doesn't mean you don't see the punch coming. But when you're right in there, you're up close within the midst of the fire. Roman is able to hit, block, parry, shuttle, shift, and come and still land shots all seemingly at the same times. Is Matrix like. From your perspective as a coach, give your analysis on the fight, but more to the point, in your mind, what makes Chocolatito such a special fighter? And to Gail's point, a first ballot Hall of Famer as soon as he puts down the gloves.
Well, I agree with Gail. There was a time in his career where we just kind of questioned, like, what happened was this not, I don't want to say a fluke, but were they putting people in front of him that he could easily walk through, and was he really the champ that we thought that he was? And he has proven time and time again here lately that he is. I think a lot of times it sounds weird, but it's like sometimes they need that loss to go back and reevaluate what's going on. Why did they lose certain fights? What was going on in their mind, in their home, in the gym, all of that stuff. you know um and Chocolatito, he was very calm, as you said. So his mental game, I don't know if he has a sports psychologist or just someone that he talks to, but he was very poised, very calm. Um and and his punch output, I mean, his conditioning was insane. Whenever he we heard when I heard that Martinez was going to be the replacement and going to fight him, I was like, man, Martinez is pretty tough. Like, he comes and he's got that pure Mexican style, and he's just going to be coming at him. I really did believe that Chocolatito was going to win, but I thought that he was going to give him a little bit more trouble than he did. I do feel like, the weight, him having to lose, and the hydration clause, I think it did have something to do with the legs, and him not having that pop, on his punch. But he, Chocolatito, it was a masterpiece. It was a beautiful symphony. His everything, his footwork, his head movement, the way that he would place his punches, punches, setting up traps. He didn't miss a beat. It's like, the last round was like the first round. He looked fresh. You know, Something that bothered me, and because I watched it, obviously, on the app, is Martinez's corner said something to the effect of, you know, die in the ring, or you got to die in the ring, or something to that effect. If somebody knows exactly what it was, please. And I was just like, whoa, what? Like,
Paraphrasing, you pretty much right. I didn't like that
yeah,
either.
yeah, right. And it's like he was taking so many headshots. I mean, there would be other coaches that would have thrown in the towel, because the punishment that he was enduring, to me, was just like excessive. And then for that, the corner to say that, I was just like, wow, like this is where he gets that grit and gut that can be detrimental, you know. But he's amazing, you know. Chocolatito, he's excellent, and I don't think that we've seen the last of him anytime soon. I really don't.
I see Daniel has joined us from Four Boxing News and the Inscriber. I'm going to go to Jacob first, and then you can follow up, Daniel. We've lauded Roman and his performance. Let's talk about what's up or what could be potentially up next. Jacob, 115 is loaded. That division, welterweight, arguably the two best divisions in the sport, right? You got Roman, you got Estrada, who we talked about. You got Sri Sakai, who we mentioned. You got Bam Rodriguez, right? You got Ioka over in Japan. You got the newly crowned IBF champion Martinez, who just basically overwhelmed on Cajas. We talked about that in the last episode. Hearn has a stake in that division, a heavy stake, right? Bam, Roman, Estrada, right? If you are Roman's handlers, would you try? Where would you go? Because Estrada, he's been ordered to face a mandatory by the BA. Hearn is talking about putting Bam Rodriguez in there against Estrada later on this year. If you Chocolatito, do you wait to see how all that filters out? He talked about possibly moving up to 118. Would you try to do that? I personally don't think so. What would you do?
I think, well, to answer, and there's a lot of questions there. So, I think with Gonzalez, I think he definitely has a bunch of options. The Estrada fight, obviously, for the mouth-watering match that it would make. The two first fights were fantastic. I personally thought that he won the second fight clearly, but it didn't go his way. But I mean, there's an argument to be made that he didn't win the first fight. So in a way, it's 1-1. So I think we deserve that trilogy. I think it would be a great trilogy like that there have been throughout the sport. So that'd be great, and hopefully they would get paid, handsomely for that trilogy. I agree with you. I don't think he should move up. I think Estrada. I mean, Gonzalez has had a lot of trouble even moving up to this division. He had a tough fight with Quadros. His loss to Rungvisai, I think, was because Rungvisai is just a bigger guy. I mean, personally, I think Rungvisai can actually move up, and I would love to see him fight like an Inoue. Yeah, I think that would be a great fight. But so I don't think he should move up. I think he's at his perfect weight right now to be effective. The Martinez fight would be great. Basically, I think he can compete with anybody at that level. A lot of people did write him off because of the way he lost to Rungvisai. But like I said, I just think Rungvisai was just too big for him. I think he was just he in a way he kind of had his number. Although I can argue that he pulled out that first fight. That he had with Rungvisai. I know he got knocked down, but I think it was more of a flash knockdown, not like a devastating knockout like he had at that, and what was it, like the fourth round of that second fight. So, yeah, this is a great division. I'm glad that there's a lot of light being shown on this division. And there's a lot of matchups, and I'm glad that we're not in a situation like we are sometimes with the welterweights, another kind of flash division where we have to wait a long time to see a lot of these matchups. I mean, I think Gonzalez should get back into the ring as soon as possible because he's not a young man. I'm going to say he's past his prime, but he's still a very good fighter, and I think he can still be a champion and win a lot of great fights. But I'm for the mindset of staying active. I don't think being out of the ring and training is the same as being in the ring and fighting. I think there's a big difference. So as long as he can get the fights, get paid, stay active, I think that's going to do better for him and his legacy. And to answer an earlier question you posed, I do think that he's the greatest fighter out of Nicaragua.
I'll go to you, Daniel. The reason I say that as great as outstanding as Roman was against Martinez, fighting in a way or Donaire at 118. The experience is there. Uh, both have a greater skill set than Martinez, and just the power element. I just don't know. In a way, they should have fought when in a way, and Roman should have fought back in 2015, 2016, when both were competing at 115. Unfortunately, in a way, decided to move up at 118. Donaire, I think he's way too big. I don't care if he is 40. We see how he's performing, right? He's blowing guys up over at 118. And I just don't think from a just a sheer skill and most of all physicality standpoint, just too big. If Rungvisai is too big for him, many people feel think of someone the likes of those two at 118 who two are hard, probably the two hardest punchers at 118. So I just don't see that fight. But in terms of 115 junior bantamweight, Daniel, where do you see Roman Gonzalez going?
The logical fight is the trilogy with Gallo. It's the logical fight to make now. He unfortunately waiting for that. He does have to wait because Golden Boy's going to push for that fight with Gallo and Franco. They're going to push for that. So he's probably has to wait for a bit. So why not stay busy? And you've already proven that you handled somebody that was supposed to be a young lion, was supposed to blitz you in a way. And why not go after Bam? The kid's young. It was a surprise win the way he beat Quadras. And one bad thing about Chocolatito's career was that when he fought and he won championships, he did not have that many chances to really like even unify like 2 or 3 belts. This would be the time to do it when you have a division that's not as experienced, and a lot of the players that can affect you are either stuck in some kind of purgatory like Rumvasai, already pretty much shop worn like Quadras, or like with Gallo maybe too busy to handle it and he has facing another person because I bet you the Maloney brothers would like to have a chance to Chocolatito. So there's potential challenges out there. I know some people have advocated to having to move to bantamweight. That would be a drastic mistake. 115 is already a little bit too much for Chocolatito as far as what he's been able to take. So I would say like try to get a stay busy fight. You need to make sure, like I said, go after a kid like Bam, maybe get another belt, and then you make that trilogy with Gallo that much more. Because outside of that Rungvisai fight, that's the only fight that people can say you lost.
Before we move on, because I know both Christine and Gail have to leave early. Let's go back. I want to go back to the comments. The comment I should say made by West Coast Boxing says his boy Bam would take care of business. Um, we talked about this fight. We talked about his win over Quadras a few shows back. I want to ask everybody here, quick comment, quick response, please. Bam Rodriguez, as talented as any young up and coming fighter in the game, even though he looked well, he looked great against Quadras. Love the way he adjusted from midpoint of that fight on. Are we jumping the gun, or folks, is Hearn, I should say, and his followers jumping the gun a little bit too soon by wanting him to put him in the ring against the likes of Estrada, who's elite, against the likes of Roman, who we saw in this recent performance is still elite? Are we asking too much too soon for him? If anybody wants to respond.
I think Bam is very talented.
Bam is really young, and a loss would not kill off his career if he wanted to take it. But he is coming up away from his natural weight class. He can make 108 and 112 easily, and I think he could clean out 112 like crazy, although he'd have Martinez to contend with, who still has a belt there. I frankly would be much more interested in seeing Bam and Martinez go at it at 112 at flyweight. I think there's no denying that the cherry on top of the cake is that third fight with Estrada that we were denied Saturday, although our consolation prize was pretty damn great. The talk I heard that's just blowing my head off is putting him in with Inui. No, absolutely not. That's asking too much. And Jacob, you're right. 118 is a lot. 115 is a lot for Gonzalez. I mean, he has settled in pretty well in his 30s, but when he first moved up, it was clear it was not his natural weight class. The other opponent being mentioned, floating around out there, and remember, folks, this is all just chatter. It's all just idle speculation. It's, everybody's party conversation, and it's fun. It may or may not have anything to do with reality, but putting the old Lions together, Nonito Donaire and Roman Gonzalez. I admit it's intriguing. I'm not sure I want to see it. I still got to think about it. But apparently, that's floating around out there. But truly, the fight to make is with Estrada. And if he wants to retire a champion, not that nice little diamond belt he got, that is not a world title, no matter what you heard Saturday night. There's Ioka out there. There's the IBF champion Martinez. It might be fairly easy. I don't know how makeable to pick off that IBF belt. I don't know about Ioka. That Roman is, of course, incredibly popular in Japan. That would be a very interesting fight there, and very makeable. What he said on Saturday is he will fight whoever Mr. Hearn and Mr. Honda say as long as they pay him. And he said that more than once. Good for you, Roman. I agree. Get that payday. He deserves every bit of $1 million paycheck for his last few fights, whoever they're against.
Well, it's a question whether Ioka wants to fight this dude. Let's just say that a lot of us in this chat right now was on an interview, kind of exclusive interview with Roman, in which he basically confirmed what a lot of folks believed beforehand. And that is there was a contract on the table with him a decade plus ago. 7-figure deal. Ioka turned it down. I know he's turned it up. He's turned down a fight multiple occasions with Roman. Would he fight him now at this stage? I don't know. And in terms of Roman and Donaire, look, I don't care. I said again, I don't give a damn if no need till damn near 40. I shudder to think if he gets connected with that left hook. I shudder to think if he starts landing consistently with that left hook on Roman. I don't want to see it. But I'm rambling on too much. I know folks are pressed for time. Again, back to my question for anybody who wants to chime in on it, please. I think you was going to say something, Christine.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, no doubt, Bam is definitely very talented. He's the future, in my opinion. He's been talented since, he stepped in the ring as an amateur. But if I were part of his team, I would definitely wait until Chocolatito is just maybe a little bit older, because he's still young. Bam is still young, and he still has something. Even though he did marvelous, in his last fight, there were a few things that I feel like needed to be tweaked, and I think a veteran of that caliber, Chocolatito's caliber, would know how to break him down. But Bam, like I said, he's very talented, and I see him as the future, taking over the division. But I think I would not rush into it anytime soon. That's my opinion.
And I think you have to go. You got an early engagement in the morning, Gail. Christine. So I'm gonna let you off right now.
Thank you so
much. But before you leave, for those who want to check you out, talk boxing with you on the socials, or give a plug to your show, And what you
Thank
do, I
you.
think you do a show tomorrow night. Give the rundown
Yeah.
on that, please.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, In the Room with Christine. And every Wednesday, my girls and I, Women Crushing It Wednesday, we come on at 8 Central. Tomorrow we're going to have Renchon, Cruz, DeZern. We try to have, someone on different and just to get into the conversation. It's very laid back. You know, dinner talk around the table, whatever. It's a fun show, and Gail, you have to join us sometime. I would definitely like to have you on. Of course, any of the gentlemen too, but usually it's the women, that come together and chop it up.
I would
I'll
love
make
to
sure.
crush it with you anytime.
I'll make
Perfect.
sure to give a listen tomorrow night because I got some time off. So
Yeah,
I'll make sure
you know
to
what?
live listen tomorrow.
Yes, just go to my YouTube channel, In the Room with Christine, 8 Central. Please subscribe, like, share, and just grab a drink and put your feet up and listen to what we have to say. It's very entertaining.
All right, again, thanks for having you. Thanks for
Thank you all
deciding to
so
take part.
much.
Hope to have you on again. All right, you have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right. Let's move on to some fights here, and I think we're gonna. I may split this up. Everyone, can you hear me? Okay, Gail. Now, I
Yep,
don't
sure
know.
can. Yes, sure can.
Okay, let's split these fights up there because we're only going to have a couple more fights to talk about. Um, let's go to the undercard of the Chocolatito Julio Cesar Martinez bout, the main bout I want to talk about, and I'll go to you on this one, Jacob. And then you can talk about this as well, Daniel. Mauricio Lara, as we all know, uh, surprised many with his upset stoppage win over Josh Warrington, uh, spring of 2021. They rematched in September. Fight was stopped due to a head clash, which caused a cut. Law Law returned on the undercard, fought a guy by the name of Emilio Sanchez. The fight was very exciting. Jacob, I believe he won third, fourth round knockout. I believe it was a third round knockout. But Rock'em Sock'em Robots in between. My Here's what I thought at the end of that fight, Jacob. One, it was exciting. Two, I know Laura wants another fight with Warrington. I don't think Warrington will fight him ever again. You just don't want that smoke. Three, as exciting as this fight was, given how open he left himself and how vulnerable he looked at good portions of the bout, how long can this dude last? That kind of style, that kind of balls to the wall, that's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. Your thoughts, Jacob?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I was tweeting with what do you call it, Gal and EJ boxing, that Lara was hurt in that. I think it was the second round. He got hit with a pretty good body shot, and you can tell he was hurt. He actually literally tried to tackle his opponent and like the corner, and then he like was sitting on the ground, like basically, oh, it looked like he was asking the ref to like pick him up or like to give him a hand to like pick him up off the ground. So he was hurt, but he has that style where he bought himself enough time where he kind of recovered, and then he came in and the guy got caught. So he did have him in trouble, but I do think that he's a knockout waiting to happen. Um, you know, he just seems like he kind of relies on his power, and I wouldn't say he has the best defense in the world, but he can definitely be hurt. He seems to be weak to the body. I think he lost I want to say an early fight. He got knocked down first round body shot and with knockout loss. So he needs to definitely work on that. But he's exciting, but Bronco needs to be careful because, like I said, I just think that he's this close to being knocked out by somebody. Maybe not Warrington, but somebody.
Do you share, Daniel, our thoughts on Lara. Okay, he's exciting. He hits hard, but if he's going to have a real future in this game, he's going to have to clean some things up.
Yeah, more than likely the first things has to be conditioning because he was already breathing pretty badly in the third round. Now we don't know if that was the case where he was, like I said, partying up in TJ a little bit before training camp and probably spent most of it just like I said, trying to get the weight down. But at the same time, you cannot deny the power. That third round is an early candidate for round of the year with the way it shaped up. He goes literally from a situation where a knockdown should have been called on Lara to him knocking the guy out with a second to spare. So there is some excitement there. Obviously, Warrington is the fight that he wants. I don't think Eddie Hearn is stupid enough to make it, but Josh Warrington may be brave enough to do it. But he does have to really focus when it comes to conditioning because you're if you're 126 to 130, you have to run into a little buzzsaw in your fellow countryman Navarrete. Not to mention, you still have Shakur Stevenson, you still have Oscar Valdez there, and if he can still make it, I don't think he can't, but Mikhail Berchout's still there. So up and down, there's a lot of good challengers that he can mess around, and they can hurt him pretty badly if his condition is the way it looked on Saturday.
Lara and Navarrete would be fight of the year worthy, but let's face it, in my opinion, Navarrete, he eat him alive. He eat him alive. He stopped him within 8 to 10 rounds. If Sanchez was able to hurt him with body shots, I can only imagine with Emmanuel Navarrete, who throws punches at these odd angles, who's relentless. I can only imagine what he'd do to Mauricio Lara's body. So those two fights we just talked about took place on a Saturday. On Friday night, Gail, um, you had the return of Jose Ramirez, who in his last outing lost in a fight for undisputed against Josh Taylor. Um, in the lead up to this fight, decision win against Jose Pedraza, won across the board by I think by 4 points on all three scorecards of in and around there, Gail. The talk from his trainer, Robert Garcia, was they wanted to see a harder, meaner Ramirez. Did you get that sense of him in the ring during this fight?
I did not. I did not. I While Ramirez won and won without controversy, won handily, frankly, I'm not sure that I see the same fire there as before his loss to Taylor. I do think he's very determined. I think he's gritting his teeth. He's really biting down hard, but something is missing. I can't put my finger on it. I I'm not sure that he feels the same freedom in the ring, the same energy. Something was taken away from him. And certainly, again, I will repeat myself. We all saw it. He won. He won handily. But part of me thinks that it was partially due to Pedraza's less than good performance. It was fairly uninspired. He was not very busy. He seemed very tired. I think they met in the middle with their shortcomings in between. So where Ramirez goes next, I think we'll get a little more insight. It's a good return for him. I think you can all hear the hesitation in my voice to say it's great. He's back. He's ready. He's ready for all the belt holders. The truth is, if he hangs in there at 140, Taylor is going up in weight. All those belts will be available. He will certainly be in position to challenge for one of those titles, vacant titles. That'll get him his championship back. But what then? I don't think I certainly don't know. I can't figure it out. I don't know if they have. He's got a good guide by his side in Robert Garcia, although he's also got problems with his brother. So Robert's got a handful to deal with there at his training camp in California. A lot of these guys are struggling. Thank God for Bam Rodriguez. I'm sure that's what Robert is saying right now.
The most likely route for Ramirez is a shot at the WBC belt. Taylor is more than likely to move up to 47 in his next fight. Ramirez is ranked number 1 by the BC at 140. Zepeda's ranked number 2. I could easily see that the BC's sanction of a bout between Ramirez and Cepeda for WBC belt later on this year. Outside of that, I agree with you, Gail. Something is missing. Something is missing. They're talking about having a mean streak. Hell, I didn't think he had a mean streak before this fight, and I just didn't see the mean streak in this fight against Pedraza. Let's move on to some news here, and going to get all of you discussion about this first subject here. Going to go backwards here from the docket, and we all know the story of Anthony Joshua post his bout with Usyk. He's dumped his former trainer McCracken. It's been a long search for a new trainer, and I'll go back to you, Gail, to get the conversation going, and you can follow up Jacob and Daniel. It seems that now we have our answer to who Joshua's new trainer will be. During a discussion on Boxing Social, Joshua has said he's been working with Angel Fernandez. I'm not that familiar with him. My apologies for that. Joshua said he's going to be working with him on a permanent basis. Your reaction, Gail?
It's interesting. Joshua made the rounds through a lot of the well-known Southern California gyms. He did workouts. He did sort of auditions, if you will, for various trainers. He worked with Manny Robles. He worked with Freddie Roach. He worked, I believe, with Ronnie Shields. Quite a few men. Eddie Reynoso. But yet he went right back to a guy who's been in his camp for quite a few years now as a chief second, Angel Fernandez. He has been at his last 3 fights in the corner, and he seemed to just go with the familiar. Now, what we don't know is whether Rob McCracken remains on the team in some kind of different position. Eddie Hearn has said in separate interviews that yes, McCracken will still be involved. So are they swapping places, swapping assignments to see what happens? That's just, it's incredibly odd to me, the whole thing. Joshua seems a little bit directionless at this point, and part of it is the world circumstances. He is in a bit of limbo given the situation of Alexander Usyk, sort of tipping dominoes all over the place. It looks like, according to what we talked about with Eddie at the card here in San Diego, we asked him about Joshua. We asked him about what's going on with some of his fighters affected by the guys in Ukraine. And he seemed to think that a interim fight to give Usyk time was perhaps going to be necessary. Joseph Parker's name is being floated. Very interesting to me. That's a makeable fight in the UK as a time filler. Sure, why not? But I'm not entirely convinced Anthony Joshua really wants to work his way back to the top of the pyramid, even if he can. He's got a lot of other interests. He's a celebrity beyond boxing in the UK. He's made a boatload of money, and I gather he's hung on to a lot of it. And, he may not want to get hit for a living anymore. We'll see.
If he's going to have Fernandez there, right, as head trainer, but he's going to still keep McCracken there in some capacity, Jacob, I don't see that as an upgrade. That's just a parallel move to me. If that's the case, Jacob, I don't understand. What's the point of going through all of this? Where you're going to essentially keep the same folks around, but move them in different positions on the board.
Yeah, I mean the whole situation with Joshua is to me, I mean I think it's pretty clear, kind of like what Miguel alluded to. I think when obviously when he was on top and he was beating guys and undefeated record and gone through some adversity against Dillian White and Vladimir Klitschko and whatnot, and got his belts back with the Ruiz fight and kind of a tame, careful performance. But I think a lot of it has to do with Joshua not taking responsibility for what he does in the ring. Like again, a trainer can add things to you and only do so much. But at the end of the day, it's that person, that boxer needs to want to fight, needs to want to, make the adjustments or listen to his corner or do certain things. And, I think a lot, we've found out a lot about Joshua in the sense against Usyk that I thought that there was times where he could have done some things, and he actually had some good success against Usyk earlier in the fight, but he didn't seem to press it, and he was kind of like waiting for Usyk to come to him, and basically Usyk almost ended up knocking him out. Like he was very passive in that fight, so it's not going to really matter at the end of the day what trainer he goes to if he's not going to adjust and if he doesn't have that fire. Like again, like Gail said, he has made tons of money. He's Eddie Hearn's cash cow for a while. Was making so much money per fight, and I just don't see that. He says that he has a desire to be a champion again, and that's why he exercised that rematch clause. But I don't get that feeling. Maybe I can see a situation where maybe he retires soon, but maybe goes out like a big money fight, like a Tyson Fury or something like that, or even like a Deontay Wilder, if they can make that fight at some point. But just kind of going out on a maybe not a high note, but like just a cashing out, so to speak, and then moving on from there. But he just doesn't seem like he's one of those people like a Roman Gonzalez where they live, breathe, and boxing and fighting and just the craft of it. He just doesn't seem to have that, which is unfortunate because I do think he has some talent, but you can't make him I guess be a different person. He has to want it. So that's just my opinion. And yeah, I don't think it's going to make a difference overall. Whether you change people or they're different roles.
You could say it's a lateral move in a sense because you look at the trainers that he was looking at. He was looking at Joe Diaz. He was looking at Joe Goosen. He was looking at Robert Garcia. He was looking to a lot of actual high-profile trainers. But he's also looking at those high-profile trainers that are probably going to hold him accountable to a lot of things. And a lot of things that he probably would have gotten away with under McCracken, which he has gotten away with, unfortunately, under McCracken. The situation has to be, though, when it comes to Joshua, is how is this arrangement going to work for the Usyk fight? Because my fear would be is they have an interim fight. They have a really, really good stay busy fight. And they see that maybe the situation has worked, the dynamic is there. Maybe McCracken isn't the problem, and that's Joshua's way of saying, I'm going to go back to McCracken, trying to please everybody in his circle. That's my fear when it comes into this situation with Joshua, because at the end of the day, we know that there's 2 to 3 fights that people want to have when it comes to Joshua. It's either going to be the rematch with Usyk, the fight with Fury as a domestic fight in the UK, although Fury wants to claim that he's coming in as a foreign fighter. We know he's not. And if he's mentally okay, Deontay. That's are the only 3 fights that warrant the situation. And unfortunately, like, this move doesn't say anything other than you're trying to please everybody that's already in your camp. You don't want to fire anybody in your camp. And you may be looking towards the fight where you can save grace that you weren't the problem, you weren't the issue, and at the end of the day, we'll just put everything back together. And if you do that and you wind up with McCracken back in the corner against Usyk, I'm sorry, Joshua's probably going to get knocked out next time.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I don't want to be too unfair to Angel Fernandez because I don't know much about him. But you would think, given how he performed and given how Usyk, the kind of fighter that Usyk is, uh, um, I would have expected something better. I mean, if he's talking about being this kind of a pit bull or whatever, um, he needs that and technical skill. If he's going to beat the likes of Usyk, he's going to need some kind of drastic change. You mentioned the fights on the table for Joshua that folks want to see: Wilder, Fury, Usyk. As we talked about last week, the fight with Usyk, the rematch with Usyk, that's up in the air for the time being because as long as the champ is over, as long as we have unrest in the Ukraine, Usyk is not going anywhere, and he stated that to be the case. Um, I was put it this way, simply put for me, I am underwhelmed by this move. I am underwhelmed, and I will leave it at that. I want to go to a couple of more stories here, quick stories, and we're going to split this up between you, Daniel, and Jacob. Um, Couple of fights that were broke or announced within the interim between last show and this show. Um, Jermel Charlo, Brian Castano, Jacob, they fought July of last year, undisputed honors at 154 pounds. The fight was ruled a split decision draw. A lot of folks felt that Charlo was lucky to walk out of the ring with all of 3 belts around his waist. Um, they were originally was supposed to fight, I think, April, but Castano bowed out due to injury. Charlo has claimed that he didn't think that Castano was injured. He's also suggested that because Charlo's also suggested that Castano is on some kind of performance enhancing drug. I don't know where he's getting that from, but anyway, they're finally going to fight May 14th, right? Your thoughts about the rematch finally happening?
Um, I mean, I'll be honest. It's kind of hard to get excited about the Charlo brothers anymore. They do so much damn talking, and a lot of their fights are very like underwhelming. Like I think they have talent, but I don't know what's up with them. But they don't seem to fight the way they talk. Both Charlos, and they have, it's like every now and then they have that spectacular knockout or that spectacular win, and then you kind of get excited about them, but then they have, just a meh performance, So I think it's very possible that Castano's going to give him a tough fight. If I remember correctly, the first fight, Charlo was basically being beat, the first half of the fight, and he basically came back pretty late in the second half of the fight. So I mean, there's a good um, case to be made that he did lose that fight. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Yeah, the fight's gonna happen, but I'm not all that excited about it, to tell you the truth.
Another fight that was announced earlier today, Daniel, rescheduled bout between Gervonta Tank Davis and Rolly Romero. They were set to fight December 5th, I believe, 2021. Uh, Rolly was forced out because of allegations of sexual assault. A Henderson County, Nevada, ruled Henderson County, Nevada officials ruled that decided that they were not going to charge Rowley. The fight has been rescheduled for May 28th at a location to be determined. Look, these two have talked a whole bunch of smack towards each other over the past couple of years. Rowley has mocked Tank Davis on numerous occasions on the socials. Tank has said that Rowley is basically in over his head. He's going to get punished whenever they get in the ring. Look, at the very least, you got two guys who can really, really punch with both hands. Skill wise, is there a difference? Yeah. But for longer, however long this fight lasts, it's going to be entertaining at the very least.
Yep, sadly, I said this was going to happen, and sadly, I was proven correct. Now, when the first time this fight was made, we all pretty much thought this was just an easy setup for Tank to steamroll Rolly, knock him out quickly, try to get another knockout victory. And nothing, absolutely nothing that has happened in the interim has convinced me otherwise. They wanted, this is the game plan for Tank, try to get as much easy victories within the PBC camp, try to make him a knockout artist, make him a pay-per-view attraction, but eventually he's gonna have to face actual competition. Unfortunately, Tank. Eventually he's gonna have to face the Devin Haney's of the world, or even like the Mike, or even the Ryan Garcias of the world, or the George Cambosas of the world, or if he goes up to 140, the Teofimo Lopez's of the world, or worst case scenario for him, the Vasily Lomachenko's of the world. At the end of the day, this is not going to do anything other than just provide skilled marketing, try to push Tank over this subset of people that are loyal to Floyd. They want to have a Floyd fighter succeed. And he does draw, I'll admit, he does draw to that audience, and that audience is willing to spend money to see him. But this is an improvement. If anything, it's a down. We all know it's a downgrade from what he faced against Isaac Cruz. And sadly, yeah, it is what it is. This is just gonna be. This is just another, just a little T-ball, just set up like a T-ball for Tank, where he'll knock Rolly out, and he'll try to move on to the next PBC challenger that they'll try to trick him to put in the ring with him. That's an easy challenger. The only thing I hope to change is, dear God, Rolly, just be a better person in the press conference, because that presentation the first time was so bad.
He was nervous. He was nervous as a tick
Yeah,
at the press conference for
he
that initial
was. It
fight.
got so bad that
Hopefully,
they.
he'll.
I know he got so bad that the conspiracy theory was that, oh no, they had to push this out of the way because if not, the the draw was going to be terrible. I'm just like, the draw's Tank. That the draw's Tank. Rolly just has to be there and just look like a competent human being.
The moment definitely got to him during that press conference, the kickoff press conference for that initial fight. Yeah, yeah. He looked and sounded shook. He looked and sounded shook. Hopefully, to your point, Daniel, that we'll see a more relaxed Rolly Romero this time around. And yeah, I think we all agree that Tank is being protected by Floyd, and we all want to see him against the best of the best at 135, right? The problem is what Floyd is doing in terms of making him more of a cash cow than a real, legit, genuine top flight fighter. Floyd's strategy is working. Don't like it, can't stand it, but it's beneficial towards him, the promoter, and towards Tank the fighter. Tank is fast becoming, with Deontay Wilder on the downslide for the time being, he's fast becoming the most popular, marketable American fighter out there. Despite our displeasure at the route that he's going about it, those are facts. You just hope at some time that later this year, some point in 2023, that they finally put him in there against a real credible performance, because at some point he's going to have to show and prove himself. Um, let's move on to preview some fights here. Mainly one fight I want to talk about. I want to get everybody in this discussion, starting things off with you, Gail. Look, last year, Leigh Wood surprised many of us when he defeated Kanzu, stopped him in the 11th round. It's when a version of the WBA featherweight title, first defense of that belt, happens this weekend against Michael Conlan. Conlan, as a lot of hardcore heads know, been much. He's been popular going back to his amateur days in the Olympics. He finally gets his title shot. Conlan is, I guess, he is the faster fighter, hands and feet, but Wood in his fight went against Zoo, showed an excellent jab. Was that a case in that Kanzu fight, Gail, that he fought over his head? Or is that, or with a belt around his waist, was that the form that he showed there? Can he show it again and even become better? Because of the old adage is, once you get a title wrapped around your waist, you become 25% better.
Well, I've heard 10%, but even if it's 10, I do think that played a factor. The confidence factor can't be underestimated sometimes, especially for guys at this level who are sound, who are willing, but they're not especially inspired, or critically skilled, or lack the kind of experience, ring generalship, taking of command, that we got to enjoy this weekend with Roman Gonzalez. But still very solid. And I think he is actually very well matched with Michael Conlan at the level they're both at. And sometimes you get a very entertaining fight, even when it's not at that supreme craft level, when these two guys have a reason to be there, a reason to stand in front of each other, and they're just very evenly matched. So this is primarily a fight of domestic interest to the UK, but it's one of the only games in town for those of us degenerates. So we'll be watching. But I'm not sure whether Leigh's got what it takes to overcome Conlan. Well, he'll get a chance to prove me wrong this weekend.
Absolutely, and I go to you on this one, Daniel. In the discussion about Jose Ramirez, Gail made the argument that there's possibly something missing in Ramirez, especially post the Taylor fight. In watching Colin over the years, Gail made him the favorite, but I had the same attitude. I have the same attitude towards him that Gail now has towards Ramirez. There's something that's missing. I've never been sold on him in his in recent outings. There's been some fights where he should have won and won easily, and yet struggled. Right? He has hand speed. He has decent power. He has good boxing skills, but I just don't think he's been able to put it all together. It may not make a difference here, but still, but still, to me, in my opinion, when it comes to Michael Collins, something is missing. Your thoughts on this upcoming fight between Wood and Collins?
It's interesting to watch Michael Conlan because you would figure that he would have a natural chip on his shoulder from the moment that you knew that he got robbed of that medal when in Rio. You know how he flipped off the judges. You figured he would come in to this entire perfection with a chip on his shoulder. It doesn't look to be that way, but that's part of it. Also, is the matchmaking that Top Rank has done. They've prepared him fairly well, where he hasn't faced too much daunting competition, which is normally their template when it comes to Olympians. This is an interesting fight for a couple of factors into it. Leigh Wood is probably the best chance that he's had, and unfortunately, when it comes to the UK affairs, like I think I shared with you three today, they're a little bit bitter. They're a little bit bitter about some another fight that has happened where it's gotten to the point where they actually reported to the police.
Yeah, you talking about that Josh Taylor's win over Catterall, which folks are still talking about, still
Yep.
discussing who actually won that fight.
Yep. Yep. It to the point that the British boxing control has actually referred this to the cops.
To the point that during the post fight of Ramirez win over Zepeda, Bradley, Ward, and the ESPN team basically had about a half hour conversation. Uh, everybody was standing on the square, and Tim Bradley was like, "He won, damn it! That's my thoughts, and I'm sticking to it."
Yeah, I don't blame them in that front, but they're bitter. Like I said, the English right now are bitter. And there's very few things, even if Conlan does win in the ring, there are very, very few things that please the English more than fucking over the Irish. So I could expect something in that front, but this is going to be a pretty decent domestic bout and toughest test for both men. And in all actuality, especially in Conlan's case, he needs a test. He needs to show like that the investment that Top Rank has put on him, even if it's a small one, should be worth it, or else remember Bob is very, very quick to dismiss you if you suddenly don't show the promise that you were having. And for Conlan, the time is starting to tick for that.
I'll go to you on this one, Jacob. This will be the last word before we begin to start to sign things off. Your thoughts on this fight, upcoming fight between
I think Wood is gonna beat him. I think like you, I was never really that high on Conlan. I think he's benefited from favorable matchups with Top Rank to make him look good, and them playing off. He's Irish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, playing off that Irish draw and just playing off that whole thing. In that fight with Khan, Wood, really impressed me. Like he really seemed to just be focused, and he was pushing the fight, and he had overall really good skill set that he put to play. To really put that fight in his favor. I actually do think, kind of like what Gail was saying, I think this is a good matchup for both fighters. I think it's sneaky. It could be a pretty good fight this weekend. It's sneaky, like just entertaining fight. But I do think that Wood's is gonna pull it out and beat him. Conlan, for all the amateur and Olympic credentials you get, that doesn't always translate. Just because you do good in the amateurs or you could do good at the Olympics or whatever doesn't mean that you're going to be good in the pros. It doesn't always translate. So, really what translates is how you fight in the pros and how you adjust, and if you can, make those adjustments in the ring, and you can add to your skill set and the kind of competition that you're fighting. Like they say, still sharpens steel. So.
And I think we're going to start to shut things down on that note. I want to thank those who joined us in the live chat, West Coast Boxing, and his comments. I want to thank in the ring with. I want to thank Christine, who joined us during the first 30 minutes of the show, roughly. And I'll say it again, if you want to talk boxing and whatever with Christine, she is the host of In the Ring with Christine, women's boxing podcast that comes on Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. You want to talk the sweet science with her, you can check her out on Twitter at In the Ring, INTHERING with C1, In the Ring with C1 on Twitter. Uh, USA amateur coach, coaches the pros as well. So yeah, you can check out her works and everything that she does. Again, In the Ring with C1 on Twitter. Going to go around the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News, nyfights.com. For those who want to talk to Sweet Science, for those who want to talk media, or for those who want to check you out occasionally on TMZ Live, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
You know where to read me, either at newyorkfights.com or comdiginews.com. That's COMMDIGI news.com. And it's a little bit of a light fight week, so I feel a Falk and Talk rant coming on for NY Fights. Stay tuned and don't get your eyebrows singed when you read it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one bit of note on In the Ring with Christine. Check out the ladies chopping it up tomorrow evening, as they will have unified super middleweight champion, uh, women's super middleweight champion Franchon Cruz. She'll be on their show tomorrow night, so please check that out tomorrow night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central Time tomorrow evening. I'll go to you, Daniel. I'll go to you, Jacob. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk movies, because you occasionally appear on the Wrong Real podcast, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back, guys. And it was fun talking boxing. I can be found at Twitter, but I'll be honest, I'm hardly on Twitter anymore. It just seems like life has got me so busy with family and everything. But you can try to reach me there, and usually I'll check it a couple times a day, and I think I get more enjoyment or more activity through my direct messaging, like with you guys and a couple other groups that I have, than I actually do on actual Twitter. So, but it's a JRATM23, and I haven't been on a movie podcast in a while, but I think maybe something's going to come up. Another movie podcast will come up relatively soon, so I'll let everybody know when that happens.
And last but certainly not least, Daniel from For Boxing News and the Inscriber, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, who's legit contender to make it out of the Eastern Conference this year. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, folks, you can find me on Twitter, RAWKS99, RAWKUZ99. Definitely catch me on there. Gonna be probably a busy season coming up because I'm looking at that April schedule and oh man, it's packed. I'm hoping, luckily, to try to get to at least me try to get to the Serrano Taylor fight. But like I said, tickets are getting a little bit scarcer for the Garden. That should tell you how much of an event that's going to be.
Oh, I'm predicting that's going to be sold out. Eventually, there's going to be a sold out event.
For sure, it's going to sell out for sure. It's a huge
the,
fight.
The Boricuas and the Irish going to show up full force in the Garden, not the small Garden. It's going to be at the big house, the big Garden, up in up in New York. So be on everybody. Please support and check out that fight. It's going to happen in April, I believe. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on the socials. Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to check out all things Pound Box Report, all information there, please go to the site, p4pboxingreport.com. Again, if you want to email us, you can do so, p4pboxingreport, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. If you're checking us out in the podcast platform, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Anchor, be it Google Podcast, anywhere and everywhere else in between. Please make sure to hit that. Please make sure to follow us there. If you're checking us out live here on YouTube or at a later date, please make sure to hit that like button if you like what you heard. Please make sure to follow us there. You check us out on Apple Podcast. 5-star review will get read on the show. Please leave a review. I love to hear comments. It will help overall algorithms of the show. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Leigh Wood and Michael Conlan. Didn't talk about it here, but excuse me, right quick. Excuse me. Uh, the former champion at 130 pounds, women's champion. Help me out here, folks. Um, Terry Harper, excuse me, my bad. Terry Harper, former women's WBC champion at 130 pounds. Terry Harper, she's making her return to the ring. She's moving up to the lightweight division. She's fighting on the undercard of Wood Harper. So we will recap those fights. We will also do a preview of a card on ESPN on the 19th. Edgar Berlanga fighting Steve Rolls, a fighter we like a whole lot. Zerna Zayas fighting on their undercard. Keyshawn Davis, who was one of the stars of the U.S. Olympic boxing team, he's fighting in an 8-round bouts on that card as well. Same night on the 19th, Virgil Ortiz fighting Michael McKinson, a welterweight contest over in Japan. The rematch between Masamichi Yabuki fighting Ken Taraji. Yabuki stopped Taraji in the 11th round, I believe it was, in one of the upsets of the year of 2021. So they are going to run it back. So, and also on the 19th in Dubai, Sonny Edwards, he's defending his IBF flyweight title against Muhammad Wasim. Oshike Foster, who was ranked, I think, second, third by the BC at 130 pounds. He's fighting on the undercard. Regis Progress is fighting on that card as well, fighting Tyrone McKenna. So there's a lot of boxing to break down on the weekend of the 19th. So again, I want to thank everybody who joined us. Thank Christine from In the Ring with Christine, who joined us earlier in the show. Thank West Coast Boxing for his comments. For Gil from Communities Digital News, NY Fights. For Jacob, the occasional guest on the Wrong Reel. Do you still have your site open and operational, Jacob? Your boxing site? If so, update us on that, please.
I haven't. No, I mean, I still have it. I still own it. And I still pay for it. But I started it with kind of with a bunch of people. Like that, the idea was to get just a bunch of different people to write in it. But it ended up being where I was the only one contributing. So, and I just ran out of time. And then once I actually discovered this, through Gail, I discovered your show, and I got a lot more out of it, by talking with you guys and promoting the show than I did at my actual site. So I don't know if I'll ever go back to it. There's nothing new on there, but it is.
Okay, cool. For Gail, for Jacob, from Daniel, for Boxing News and the Inscriber, this has been episode 355 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael. We'll see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.